Hello everyone, I hope you're all happy and healthy along with respected families very located on this God's green earth. The various discussions that are going on right now at a strategic level in the United States with respect to the objectives and the method that the axis of evil countries would act towards the United States. There are various discussions, whether it's at the military level, economic level, and social level, and other aspects, technology space, where there are threats that are being created and posed against the U.S. interest, against the U.S. homeland, against the U.S. allies. And one particular area that I don't see much of a discussion that is as serious as any other is the connection between axis of evil and terrorism. I am very confident based on what I see on the ground and based on my knowledge of these countries and their intention, their capabilities, and the nature of their relationship. If you just look at how the type of countries that are there, of course, the first and foremost is the China's Communist Political Party, the People's Liberation Army, all these entities that are claiming to have the capabilities to counter the US and their allies, but in reality, they do not have the manpower, they do not have the institutional capability, they do not have the technical capability, they do not have the level of sophistication in terms of arms and ammunition and logistics in order for them to have any face-to-face confrontation with the US and their allies. The second country is, of course, Russia and the Putin circle, that I call them Putin's mafia circle, who are already bogged down in Ukraine, and they have indicated they do not have the capability to go ahead with any sort of a ground offensive or air offensive or other capabilities that they believe that they have. They are unable to continue down this path. Of course, there's another country, is Iran, the IRGC of Iran, the Ayatollahs, that they are also proven that they are unable to support their allies, whether that's Hezbollah of Lebanon, whether that is the Bashar al-Assad of Syria, and other networks that they have in the region. They do not have the institutional capability, do not have the financial resources, and they do not have the military capabilities, despite the fact that they are showing off some drones or some other capabilities that they have. And of course, some elements in Pakistan that I think is mostly situated in the Inter-Service Intelligence Agency of ISI, whether they are in bed with the Iranians based on their religious ideology and belief that they have, that Sunnis and Shias need to cooperate against the West, against the non-believers. Though some extremist elements are there. One of them, Mr. Faiz Hamid, is already in jail, along with Imran Khan, because of these networks of relationships that they had with Iran, with Russia, and with Chinese and others. So together, if you look at this group, I think it is much more easier for all of these countries to cooperate and coordinate their efforts by co-opting terrorist organizations, whether that is Al-Qaeda, whether that is a Taliban terrorist group, whether that is the TTP in Pakistan, whether that is ISIS-K in Afghanistan and Pakistan, and other terrorist organizations, because of Iran's expertise in on operational level in working with terrorist organizations. I think there is some understanding that has been reached between elements in Russia, China, Pakistan, and Iran that they put into implementation by supporting the Taliban terrorist organization against the US and coalition forces that forced the US forces to withdraw from Afghanistan. I hear that President Biden the other day mentioned that the objective of these countries were to keep the US bogged down in Afghanistan. Of course, yes, that was the objective. But another objective that they didn't think they would achieve was to make sure the US leaves Afghanistan. Because they didn't want the US to also stay in Afghanistan. They also didn't want the US to stay in Afghanistan comfortably. So the least objective that they had was to make sure that the US, because they thought that the US would stay, that the US bleeds out. And the US were not bleeding out in Afghanistan. It was the Afghan forces that were bleeding out. and they were in the front lines of fighting terrorism. The U.S. was mostly in an advisory role, and there were many casualties in the final years of the fight there. But of course, the ultimate objective of all these countries were the U.S. withdrawal and zero presence of U.S. in Afghanistan, and they achieved that objective. And so, based on that success, I think they have now invested fully on this capability, on joint capability that they have, a concerted effort between all of these intelligence organizations to back the Taliban, a terrorist organization, as an umbrella terrorist organization where all of the terrorist networks are pledging allegiance to the Taliban leadership, whether it's publicly or privately. All of the terrorist organizations around the world pledge allegiance to the Taliban leader, Haibatullah. And so, given the fact that now the Taliban have a state, now have a country, now have a platform, they are supporting all of these terrorist organizations to launch attacks against the US, against the Western countries, against Europe, against Australia, and they are in process of planning other attacks. These recent attacks that happened in New Orleans, it is directly connected to the Taliban terrorist organization. If people look at it, take a hard look at the evidence and track down where the connections are, and sideline their political biases and look at it in plain sight and truth, that what is actually going on. All of them are tied to the Taliban, and the Taliban are tied to the axis of evil, and that is how they are planning to take down the US and Western countries. I hope the relevant entities and organization and leadership are vigilant in all of these countries, and I'm confident that the new leadership in the United States understand this. The Republican leadership have the knowledge of these networks, and they understand the evil designs, and they are the ones who first coined this phrase, the axis of evil phrase, and I hope they understand it, and they will follow through and pursue this, going after all of the terrorist organizations that are serving as a proxy groups to the axis of evil. And of course, direct confrontation with the axis of evil, who are state sponsors of terror, is a must and needs to be at the top of the agenda. So with that hope, God bless you, God bless the United States, and God bless our world.